But just I've advised caucus today, as indeed I advised the Prime Minister on Sunday, my intention not to pick up the list seat, which I am eligible for as a result of Saturday night's result. It's principally because having now been put into opposition, I think it's important for the party to straight away start to build the talent that it needs for the 7th Labor government. Labor has had an incredible intake, or two incredible intakes in 2017 and 2020. There's a huge depth of talent, some of whom won't be part of the 54th Parliament, but may well be interested in coming back after that. By me stepping aside, it'll make room for at least one more, but I think it also expresses my view that the party now needs to think not just about what opposition looks like, but what the next government looks like, and identify the faces for that. And I am not the face of the 7th Labor government. Politics is a team sport, and so the team must be strong. And there are difficult times and challenging times. This is one of them, and so there needs to be a good conversation about it. But it's not on the basis of kind of ripping each other apart. Teams work well when everybody knows their role, understands their role, is committed to their role, and I'm confident now we've had a culture in the caucus developed over the last 9 years where people get that. I know it's a cliche, but being a minister is just an extraordinary privilege. I've had a lot of portfolios. I've enjoyed every single one of them. I'm pleased with a lot of the things that I've done. So there's not one thing that stands out. It's when you get the job of minister, you look at the commitments we've made as a party, and you get on, you develop the relationships with officials and with others, with sector groups, and you just do your best to get the stuff done.
What was the greatest treaty settlement claim for you?
The greatest treaty settlement claim. Well, the claims, of course, are the claims of Hapu and Iwi, but as treaty minister, look, it was great to see Maniapoto getting over the line, great to see Whakatoria getting over the line, great to see Ngāti Kaungunu ki Wairarapa, Tamaki Nui Aroa over the line. What I'm very pleased about is we've changed the conversation with Ngāpuhi. We've put in place Te Putonu, the investment fund, to start actually making sure we have some options and opportunities for Ngāpuhi at whatever time they and their hapu are ready to get around the table with the Crown.
Was that one that got away from you? Because it certainly got away from Finley.
I think Ngāpuhi is very special. Ngā hapu o Ngāpuhi are very special. And they are the custodians of the treaty. They also have the history of he whakaputanga, and the Crown has to acknowledge that and recognise that. I think part of the challenge is finding a way to talk about he whakaputanga me te tiriti in the 21st century, and we both sides have to work on that.
One of the most defining moments of your time as an MP was when you were leader and you stood aside for Jacinda Ardern. Just asked you to reflect on that time and how that plays into your legacy as a member.
Yeah, I think I said to a caucus just now, I said, in politics, you need ego in politics, but you also need humility and you need self-awareness, and you need to know that when it's not working, then you've got to let others who you have confidence can do the job to step up, and I was proud to do that alongside Jacinda, and I think part of what has informed my decision is exactly that. We have incredibly talented people in the party, many of whom have had the experience of 1 or 2 terms in Parliament. They are the face of the future, and we've got to let them come forward and to flourish.
What's the emotion today?
Look, what other MPs choose to do is up to them. Yeah, that's not my decision.
What's the emotion today? How are you feeling?
Why is now the right time to go?
I think the party is, in spite of Saturday night's results, in very good heart and in very good spirits. And that's right from the activist base to caucus, and many of the departing caucus members are in a good frame of mind and are in good heart. The party is very strong, and that's why I think we have to not be thinking about our time in opposition, but thinking about our next time in government and building for that and building the talent for that. Yeah. Craig and then Ben. Yeah.
What's the emotion? How are you personally feeling calling time in politics?
I could get very clinical about my personal decisions. I think it's the approach I take. Sometimes it catches up with you afterwards. But I think very carefully about the party, the interests of the party, because I think Labour Party governments do an extraordinary amount for New Zealand. I think the Labour Party is the nation-building party of our political system. But we respect the democratic process, and when we're in opposition, that's the time to rebuild, and we have an opportunity to do that. Yeah.
You just said now it's about the set of Labour government.
Yeah, look, I think he can, but in the end that's for him and the caucus and the party. I won't be participating in any decision on that. That'll be for them and for Chris in the end. Chris, I think Chris had a really hard ask taking over from Jacinda. History tells us, with the exception of the first Labour government, there is no government that has changed its leader mid-term that has been re-elected in the following election. But he came up against the incredible circumstances of Cyclone Gabrielle and then the changing economic conditions, and he ran a campaign. He just threw everything at that campaign. So he's a tough cookie. He's a good leader. What he does is up to him.
What advice will you have for the new treaty negotiations?
Be steady. I think that I intend no criticism of Chris Finlayson, but I think the feedback I got was many iwi felt rushed with some of their settlements, and I think what I've learned is the importance of dialogue, and it's kanohi kita kanohi. You've got to front up and face up, and if things aren't right for the time, they're not right for the time. If we want enduring agreements, then we've got to give it time for them to come together.
Do you think any of the national MPs currently have what it takes to be treaty negotiations minister?
I haven't really done an assessment of them. It's not something I would spend time doing. In the end, Christopher Luxon has to pull together his ministry and find a suitable minister. The treaty process is such an essential one for this nation, for our journey to reconciliation, our journey to understanding, our strengthening of the treaty and its place in our constitution. So it needs somebody who respects all those things.
What's next for Andrew Little? What do you do next?
Well, no plans, except to hopefully go back into the law. So now taking steps to get my practicing certificate.
So did you say law or lawn?
Lawn. No, I don't have a lawn mowing business. I do have lawns to mow, that's true. But this is not the weather for it. So I go back to law. I want to practice on my own account, so there's some hurdles I need to leap over for that. So it'll take me a couple of months to
Will you be
do
working
that.
with
Will that be Labour law?
Yeah, that's the area that I'm practiced in, and the funny thing you find is as a minister, you never leave the law behind. I've had some interesting experiences using my legal knowledge as a minister, but anyway, I've also know a fair amount about public law now, so look, I'll work out what my shingle will say.
Andrew, you've had a lot of ministerial portfolios. Is there any particular unfinished business in any of them?
The one thing that I regret that we didn't quite finish was the national security reform. It was a recommendation out of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into the mosque attacks. I was a coordinating minister, so there was a limit to what I could do, and I know that the two Prime Ministers, as Ministers of National Security, they had a whole heap of other challenges, and we just didn't get the progress that we wanted. I think it's all set up, ready to go if the new government wants to pick it up. But I think it is important that we do see that reform. National security institutions do need strengthening in terms of their leadership and our strategic way ahead. That was reflected in the National Security Strategy Statement we released a few months ago. But that's an area I'd like to see some progress on.
Have you got time now to write a book and use all of those notes from your time as leader?
Well, I want to get my practicing certificate and get ready to go back to the law. And I tell you, the thing that I'm most looking forward to is, because being a minister is pretty much 7 days a week, is getting my Sundays back.
to do my things. So that'll be top priority.
Will you be working
In the
with...
settlement space, do you have any concerns about how the Act's proposal to redefine the principles of the treaty could affect settlements and the whole, environment around it?
I think the ACT Party's platform, and to the extent that the National Party seems to echo it, is worrying because it's counter to at least 50 years of jurisprudence, but also more than 100 years of establishing the proper place and status of the treaty in our constitution. The idea that that now somehow is subject to a referendum goes against the principle of the rule of law, which the ACT Party claims to stand for, and will be, if they prosecute it, divisive and I think very bad for the long term of New Zealand.
And given what's happened in Australia with the voice, are you concerned that if you leave something like that up to the majority to decide, you could lead to a situation like that?
Yeah, I think the Treaty of Waitangi is a fact of our history. It is the start of our nation state as New Zealand. It was the agreement between the British Crown and Māori to establish a nation state and a state government. That is a fact. That has been recognised. The contents of that agreement have been recognised by a swathe of legal decisions, from the Privy Council to the Supreme Court, to the Court of Appeal, to the High Court, and of course the Waitangi Tribunal. That's not even up for debate and discussion, and that's where I think the ACT Party has got it wrong. One of the things I learned in the course of being a minister is and I'm paraphrasing something that Winston Churchill said, but it goes along the lines of govern with history at your elbow. And what I think he was saying is, know what leads to this. Know what has gone behind the decision that you're being asked to make. And I would hope that the new government governs with history at their elbow. In this building, I've loved every minute of everything I've done in this building, especially on the tiles. I think the most challenging moments were as Health Minister when, after COVID and as life was starting to return to normal in 2022, a major kind of surge of demand on the hospital system, and primary care itself was struggling to cope. That was the winter of 2022 was an extraordinarily challenging and difficult time. I cancelled my week off in the middle of the year that I try to get to continue to work through, to support the system through those challenging times. So that was probably the time I'd say I was, first time I really felt the impact of prolonged stress because of my concern about the ability of the system to cope.
Pike River whānau, are you satisfied with how that has been completed under your time?
Yeah, I think the benefit of the Pike River project is that it's allowed the police to continue the investigation that they had to stop in 2011. As I understand it, that investigation is making good progress, and that's a great thing. That was a massive injustice to those workers and to their families, and I live in hope that they will see justice one day. Look, there's a lot I'm proud of. There's a lot I've enjoyed seeing. Pike River project was one of them, getting the Criminal Cases Review Commission in place. I'm seeing through the health reforms, again, at a difficult time. We now have a consolidated entity that can really manage the huge resources that the health system has, but think of it as a national system as opposed to 20 different systems. I've enjoyed my time in Defence, getting the pay rise, continuing Ron Marks and Pendi Henarde's work and getting the new kit and the new equipment. Immigration has been challenging, but I think we've given enough signals to Immigration New Zealand about expectations about the quality of processing they do and the work that they do. Look, there's a lot.
Well, one of your biggest disappointments be if this new government repeals the Māori Health Authority?
Yeah, look, and I was very proud to work with Pendi Henarde on that, and we actually didn't follow the recommendations of the Simpson Review. We followed more closely the recommendations of the Waitangi Tribunal inquiry into health, to Māori health. But in the end, we've made the decision, it's in place. It will now be for Māori. If they want a Māori health authority, they're going to have to take that fight to the new government.
And your little island that you were not, but one of my first stories for TVNZ, I interviewed when you came from the Hipkins and you came across. What was literally sitting on the beach and you were projecting forward to your political history. What would you say, projecting back to young MPs who are coming in now?
You're right, I don't remember that interview.
Maybe what it meant to you.
Yeah. I think you've got to, look, we all come to this with a set of, or we should do, come to this with a set of core values and principles and things we want to see done. The journey is never a straight line, and often it's a zigzag, and some of the zigs are very big and some of the zags are very short. Stick with what you believe in, stick with those principles. Being in government is just a huge honour and a huge privilege. You are there to serve all the people, but you're there to make the country better. And if you can leave here feeling that you've made the country a better place as a result of your efforts, then that's a good basis on which to leave, and it is the basis on which I leave.
Going back to your comments about prolonged stress, do you want to elaborate on then how that manifested and whether that pressure, that toll that took has actually contributed to why you're leaving today too?
I can tell you it hasn't contributed to that. It's when you're dealing with the challenge of it, a health system that had been somewhat protected during COVID, but then had to open up. And we had to deal with the impact of COVID on a lot of their systems to prevent infection and prevent and control infection. Meant it was harder for nurses and doctors and others to do their job. And then you get the stories about the pressure the system is under, the number of people turning up to EDs, and the correspondence from people saying, look, it just didn't seem to go so well. And of course the stories of people who had a very bad experience. That stuff weighs on you. I think if you're a conscientious minister, you do think about that stuff, you do think about the impact on people, you call the officials in, you say, look, what's going on here, what more needs to be done. But you're also constrained. You can't just throw bucket loads of money at the drop of a hat to problems. And as we know with the health system in particular, because it is understaffed, you can't find clinically qualified people at the drop of a hat either. So all of that stuff plays on you. You want it to get better. You do your best to make sure that good decisions are happening, good processes are in place. But none of that stuff gets fixed overnight. No, look, you have good days and bad days, of course you do, but I feel, as I say, honoured to have got here, to be a Member of Parliament, to have been a Minister. As I say, it's a unique but incredibly rewarding experience. Funny, I think the day that Jacinda announced her new minister, we hadn't even been sworn in, I got a card from Nick Smith, of all people, who gave me a lovely message about just the rewarding nature of being a minister and what you can do and so on. And I've remembered that, and he was right, on that occasion only.
Do you think Labour has a task?
When I look back on what the government's done in the last 6 years, what has defined it is that it has put people first. It's a party that has been in government that has been focused on incomes, lifting incomes, alleviating poverty. Those are Labor values. On addressing the housing shortage that we've got, particularly social housing, but also affordable housing. I think, and on the treaty space, continuing that journey of honouring the treaty and making it real for Māori and for all of us. So I think Labour has been true to its values and its principles, but it has governed in the last 6 years, not only to fulfil its manifesto, but against some of the harshest, unpredictable events that any government has had to deal with.
Will you be doing any mahi with other iwi on their planning settlements when you're out in the real world?
I don't, in the real world. This feels pretty real to me, Claudia. I don't have any specific plans. I want to get myself in a position to practice law again and then see what I do after that.
What do you do first? A
Yeah, my wife and I booked a trip to Rarotonga next week, some time ago, so we're going to Rarotonga next
So you've
week.
known for a while then?
I've known for a while I'm going to Rarotonga. I didn't predict the election result, Jason, no. Anyway, thank you all. Thanks.